trying to make a list of just what I'm hoping to learn from you guys. I want to learn about your aspirations for yourself and the growth of St. Vincent screen industry. Or you just planning to get some stuff under your belt and leave? Do you see an industry here? What are the elements that you think defines St. Vincent Continent or St. Grenadines? So I'll just say STPG. What kind of stories do you want to tell? Are they blockbusters? Because you'd be well in your league. I'm going to tell you that right now, if you consider that. Because to do that, you really have to leave. I want to learn about what you think is missing here and what's impeding your own advancement. Because anything that I can do to help, I'm here. You just have to ask. I'm not saying I can do everything. And because I've sponsored this and I'm hoping to sponsor it next year, I don't have deep pockets. What I have is a heart that tells me if there's something that needs doing. I can't ask somebody else to do it. I need to jump in and do it myself and hope that others join and do it too, right? I see Aiko and her team has done that, and without saying so, they've put out a clarion call just by what they're doing, and I have responded, right? So, what do you believe is the most important missing element at this juncture in your development? Those are the things I want to know about. And why do I think I can help? Simply because I want to. That's it. So, down the line, one at a time, tell me about your work and tell me about anything it is that you think you need to talk about. Then start with you.
Okay, so
Name again.
well, my name is J.C. Lewis. I'm a part of the Alpha Studios, and we are filmmakers, right? But me personally, I started doing funny videos on social media. That was what I wanted to do because I wanted to get into acting. Acting was like one of the things that got me through life, to be honest. Because when I was younger, like I used to face a lot of depression. And the way I used to deal with my depression is make videos so other people could laugh. And when other people laugh, I feel good because I make people laugh. So people being happy makes me happy. So I started doing funny videos and all of that. And then I met Javed. Because one year I was in Canada. And he saw what I was doing. And he said if I want to come on board with a movie that he was doing. I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, that's my thing. That's acting. Acting is my thing. So, so like, that's what I want to do. So like, now I'm getting this opportunity to like show my skill. I said I grabbed it. But I was in Canada at the time, so I told him like, okay, we can do something, but when I get back, because I'm in Canada. He was like, okay, no problem. I'll wait for you then, because you got the skills. So I came back from Canada, and then we were going to enter the 9 months competition. But we didn't get through with it because of some ups and downs. So we didn't get through to do what we wanted to do. So we ended up doing something different. Because when the volcano erupted, we actually went around the shelters doing performances, and that's how I met Aiko.
It's fantastic.
Which Hairouna Phillips assisted us with as well.
Yes. So now that Aiko helped us do that, I get to meet Aiko. So now I'm broadening my horizons and meeting new people. So then I told Javed, like, yeah, this is gonna be something big. We need to like do something. So yeah, we ended up doing a movie, Our True Story, and then we released it, and we got a lot of attention, and we did not expect it because we did part 1 and it was like, Okay, we did part 2. Then we actually got like
Now you learned from the first one, right?
yes, the first one was like okay.
Training wheels.
Yeah, it was more like a starter, like
Yeah.
university, you get a
Yeah.
starter. And then
Training wheels.
Yeah. So
Hold on just a sec. Can you hear over there? It's fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we did the movie, we brought it out, and then we got some good results, to be honest. And then I was like, yeah, this is totally what I want. Like,
So what was the movie about?
Huh?
What was the movie about?
But it was about a guy. He used to be a bully. He used to go around bullying people, like like one of those guys. And then something hit him, right? And his friend, who was Javed, was in the movie as my friend. I was the guy that was playing Jay in the movie. And he used to bully people, and then he got a wake-up call. Because his friend was like, yo, like, you shouldn't be doing this to people because you don't know their backstory. And one of the people that I bullied was a girl that was pregnant. And I was mad because she didn't want me. She got pregnant for someone else. But then what I didn't know is that she actually got raped. And then that's when my friend lashed out at me and told me that he shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. Then he got a wake-up call. He's seeking redemption. So that's when part 2 comes in. So part 2, we carried the story a bit differently. So I took the girl in that was actually pregnant because she was like someone that I wanted to be with. But then I accepted it. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I could bring her in. Because her father actually threw her out because of the pregnancy, which was Hayden and Billingy. So yeah. So
Big up for the film tonight. Those on screen, I hope you have go and see this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Hayden Billingy was her father. He kicked her out. I took her in, and then roller coaster now because then I have a crazy ex.
Okay, you better sit down. Anything for them to talk about.
So yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, throw all the spoilers.
So yeah, it's been an amazing journey thus far, and I just really hope that we can continue doing great stuff.
What do you want to make this happen, other than a million views online? What do you want professionally? What do you want in terms of skills? What do you want in terms of just resources so that you can move that level? Because now you've had a little practice, right? A little practice was that first, the reel came off. First thing that you did. You didn't get as many views. So now you've done the second thing. What have you learned from that second thing? What did you mess up in the first that you've now corrected? And what did you mess up in the second that needs to be corrected? Not you.
Well, my name is Phillips. I'm a welder and also a local artist. And I'm an actor for Alpha Entertainment. I'm one of their, executives as well. I meet Panelists and them, along the coastline when, there was, I think you guys finished,
Part 1.
part one?
Yeah.
Part 1? Yeah. And this.
Let me ask you a question first. You kept saying part 1 and part 2, but did I hear the name distinctly?
Oh,
The film?
that,
What's it called?
All the true story.
Our True Story.
that's part.
Okay, that's part 2.
And part 1 is their true story.
Their true story and our true story. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And when I met these guys and I saw what that, they was doing and thing, I was like, yo, I need to find myself here because, I see the type of energy that they produce. And from year around, those type of energy, they develop yourself for one thing. So I would say in front of them, thank you guys, they saved me from the street. I have to say they keep me active. Keep me going and going, and from your around people with the right mindset, you will make it. And that is what I see in these guys. And people normally just always say, oh, you know, they're just young people and they really want to see more. Until when you see it, you know, they're like, wow, these young folks.
Yeah.
They're great, like, I really need them for my side. This wrongs, you know what I'm saying?
Remember, your audience is here,
That's
okay?
right, that's right.
That's where you start. This
Yeah.
is your first audience. Never forget. Because if they don't accept you here, you're going out into the whole wide world where they may not accept you there either. So start at home, treat them right. And I'm gonna flip the table a bit, so we're not just doing a straight line down. I'm gonna come over here.
I'm not Vincentian, sadly, but I have kind of recently started a kind of video series, documentary series, which is focused around exploring like dual heritage. So I feel like often like where I'm from in the UK, it's often like assimilate and become part of the common culture. And you know, if you're like me, you know, you have you're half Nigerian, it's like you're not encouraged to embrace that as much. So I kind of started this video series, which I just talked to like close friends about their background and their relationship with the other country, because I really think it's, you know, like you say, culture is really important that we preserve that. And I kind of just want to create more of a global community and an understanding of our differences and embrace those. So it's kind of just a really fresh new project. It's kind of my journey. I'm not necessarily filming it. I'm getting maybe a bit more involved in editing, and I'm also very cautious of who's sponsoring it, because I don't want, as you say, I don't want companies that can just pay a check to feel better, like, oh, we're supporting this.
Yeah.
I want, so right now, like, we kind of, I'm in marketing, I'm trying to like self-fund until I figure out the best strategy to kind of get income, but I don't want it to just be some guys like, oh yeah, we did this, and so they can pat themselves on the back. I want full kind of
I'm
control.
gonna tell you, you're gonna find a lot of that happening, where people get involved just to pat themselves on the back.
Yeah.
But it's still their money,
Yeah.
right? And your idea has to be whether or not your content is authentic, right? It's not always, you're not always gonna find the right people to finance it, but what you will find is perhaps the right motives. You know, you may not have the right name on a piece of paper, but you're gonna have to decide what their motives are. And those motives is what you run through your production company, and make sure as a marketing person, you need to make sure your team understands that, because ultimately you will be questioned. So it's how you come to the money is for you to decide whether or not that money is right for what you're doing. So don't just discount it wholeheartedly. I guess what I'm trying to say to you guys is that you need to think, okay? It's not just enough that someone showers you with stuff. You need to really look at the ulterior motives, right? What are they looking at? When you talk, I believe very much in a feeling and energy. I'm not saying everybody is happy, but I believe in energy. And if the energy is right for me, then it means that I can go further. If the energy is not right, that's my first stop, right? So I'm saying to you guys, do your homework. Do your homework. You're on the right path in terms of lining up your creative output with the right source of energy and money. But don't let it limit you from just seeing the name, right? Eventually they'll change the name if their heart is in the right place. But that's kind of what I want you to think of. But good for you. You're already on the path of trying to deal with the, they call misappropriation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just trying to deal with that energy that's out there. Because so many of us forget our roots, right? I have never forgotten mine. My mother made sure of that. I just haven't been back in the country for a long time, but my mother was very much Vincentian, and her story has continues to inspire the work that I do. Some of it for the wrong reason, as parents will do, but but it's there. So
Okay. Well, before I start, could I get everyone to just stand? Just want everybody to get everybody to stand.
yeah, he wants energy. He wants energy.
People online stand too.
Yeah, Vincent so falling asleep here.
No, and everybody just have a seat again. Just have a seat. I'll sit standing. So my name is Colin, Browne, and I'm a producer. And what a producer does, in my opinion, is shares information, sometimes without context, but tries to get a response in a timely fashion. Because when you're producing, I may not be able to tell this person I used to do X, Y, Z because this is the case, because it may throw off something else. So it's that whole way of disseminating information. And I think in this room, we have a lot of, I just heard, filmmakers. I would love to produce some content for you guys, let's link. So I'll speed it up. Aiko is like my little sister, but not so much. Like really cool.
Different mother.
Different mother. So she contacted me years ago at the Hairouna Film Festival, and I submitted stuff 1 year, and then the next year I was just swamped with work, and I was studying the business side. The creative side went, I'll be honest, it went out the window because it was only about trying to get to this next figure, And it became, I have to quote my friend Houdini, it became soul-sucking work. And I'm being very honest.
You just entered the producer's realm.
Yes, it became soul-sucking work. So I had to find a way to literally, and it may sound cheesy, but you have to balance it out. So in your team, you can't always do everything. You have to find somebody else to pick up the slack. Aiko is not doing this alone. She has a whole lot. I know people online casting people behind the camera, but there are a lot of people who participated, who helped, who did all that stuff, and that's also the producer's job. Getting everybody to play nice, even though sometimes your job is also to make them not play nice, for to help. You understand. When you have to navigate a story, it's all part of it. Not in a malicious way, but that's just the nature of the beast. You also have to be trustworthy, not misappropriate funds. Rory, understand. So it's like, so being a producer, you're wearing all the hats, but you have to also know when to relinquish and say, I have to give over to Aiko, I have to give over to Marva, I have to give over to Jamali, Hayden, and that's why I'll have a seat.
Well, to underpin what he said here, included in your handout is a description of what a producer is. And I always like to think of it as the buck stops here. It doesn't matter what your team does, okay? If they're not doing it right, the person who have to carry that burden is the producer, period. So when a producer asks you to do X, his project, he has an idea, you can offer suggestions, but if it is at the end of the day what he wants is X, then you really should pay attention. You may decide he is not a good producer in the end, but for the moment of that project, of bringing that project to realization, is that you need to work as a team, and your team leader is your producer, right? I have the slide here, you will pass it as you go by. But one of the things that every person who works with a producer asks is whether or not you have complete authority over a number of things. And I'll list those things for you. It's listed here. I'm going to encourage you, if you want to take pictures of the screen or whatever, go right ahead. I don't have a problem with that. I gave up my rights to be exposed a long time ago. Although I'm quite shy, still quite shy about it. But yeah, so he's absolutely right. So we'll circle back around and get into some details on that, but he's on point. And it's a killer job. It's why I have high blood pressure. You're laughing at me. It's the truth. I'll tell you a little lighten up story. I have spent we moved offices. I've always worked for myself, but for 5 years, I actually worked with a production company called Inner City Films. We are still very tight, but they were just beginning to come up in the world in Canada, a black production company, but we still not unheard of. Nigerian. and a bunch of Nigerian brothers. And they had this 40-episode series that they were given by a broadcaster. And literally were biting their fingers. They said, how are we gonna make this happen? We have to make, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. And they got lucky. And the luck came up because they had an idea, and this is what you gotta be aware of. Everybody's waiting to exploit your work. And they had the idea that this was so good. Discovery Health was just being formulated. And their idea is that they will pay for this package at a reduced rate.
Sorry,
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Yeah, pay for the package at a reduced rate, and then they have something to sell Discovery. They didn't share this with us. So all the boys were thinking of was that we gotta make this happen and we gotta make it look good. And it just so happened that the studio head, Alphonse Adetui, get the name of Nigeria, could you get with that? Alphonse Adetui, I had invited to one of my workshops when I was still I was producing a festival at that time. And he remembered me and called me up and said, would you join forces with me for this? They had a lot of negotiation as to why it is I would give up my life and not being responsible to anybody in order to do this. I did it for 5 years. It was very 5 productive years. But the point I'm making here will tell me this story is that you will continue to have people who will want to take your work, exploit it, and hope you don't notice. Right? And take it as your own, which is why copyright is on this, on the menu today. Because I want to walk out of here with you guys really understanding the role of copyright in the life of your work. Okay? So I'm going to pass on. So that's where producers and stuff and all the other stuff that's in here is going to talk about.
Hey, well, my name is Vonley.
Hi, Vaughn.
I'm a Caribbean filmmaker born in the island of Barbados. I am on my road to doing my first feature film. It's a documentary, creative documentary on the ocean. I'm looking at the consciousness of the ocean and how that relates to who we are as human beings. It's said as a creative documentary. I'm exploring different multifaceted ways to kind of tell this story. The inspiration behind it came from me writing my feature film series within a storm. I was writing and everything, and it just, the information of me trying to flesh out this fantasy world, I had to kind of dig deeper and really kind of brown my world that I'm looking to create in reality. So I'm on my first feature. I'm on that journey. It's currently in development. I'm here to learn, be among, this is really big for me, be among filmmakers. I feel like it's just in film you need a sense of community. It's not always about, who's doing what, or, rivalry is good and stuff, but it's always about, support, and kind of sharing the information with your brethren and kind of growing on that next level. And I'm just ready right now. So,
And you realize that we're not a community without women in it.
and I realize that, and definitely is something that,
And at some point, I'm gonna ask Aiko to stand up for the female side of this equation.
She does.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that side.
So that's pretty much right now. That's pretty much it.
Well, I'm thoroughly impressed by you guys. I'll go back over here. to Mr. Startup.
So my name is Javed DaSouza. I run and operate Alpha Studios, which is still very part of.
How long have you been around Alpha Studios? When did you start?
In 2017. We started in 2017, just after high school, right? But it got more serious in 2018. So I started doing more serious practice. When I started Alpha Studios, my initial thing was to address social issues with creative storytelling. Because just like you just said, he was going through a depressing time and he didn't want people to feel like he wanted to make people laugh, see people laugh, make them happy. So I felt like if I could be a voice for people, I could tell these stories that these people who are getting more could feel like they're getting more, so I created stories for that. On a journey I met a lot of amazing people, these people included, and there's a bigger team involved in our here today, but Vonley, I met Vonley and all these other crazy people. My first major project was our story, Sure Tonight. That project taught me a lot. One thing it taught me is a lot of people won't be on board with what you're doing until they already have something to do. Right? Because when I did our story, I was looking for cast. Other people was like, who is this guy? I don't want to be a part of this thing. But when it launched and it was premiered and everything, a lot of people wanted to be a part of what happened.
Yeah.
That's what I realized from that.
That's not uncommon. I think you're going to hear that thread throughout each of our development.
Start
Yes.
momentum.
I don't want to cut you off, but you can't fall them either because
Yeah.
nobody wants to live in an unfinished house.
Exactly. Yeah.
So only you're the architect, you know where you're putting your blocks.
Yeah.
You know it's stationary, it's unstable,
Yeah.
but don't fault them,
Yeah, no, it's part of the history of development.
And adding to it, Vonley said, with a creative community, that's something I think we have to as well. There's something we need to work on. Because a lot of times we get stuck in our own selves and our own selves and just lose motivation a lot. And being around creative doesn't help your bones. That kind of changes and stuff doesn't keep the motivation. So I think that's something we need to work on as well. We're going.
Could I suggest that, because the community is so small, maybe you guys need to start a little online monthly chat among yourself and talk about what it is you're doing and the problem that you may have run into during that space of time that you didn't talk, and maybe somebody in the chat can help, But that's the kind of collaboration that is so worthwhile. You don't have to give up anything. All you have to do is just be, right? Be you in that situation.
And that's something I'm still learning too, collaboration. Because I always felt like nobody could understand my vision.
Well,
So I'm the only one that can execute it. But during this process, I realized like filmmaking is it's a team effort. You can't just by yourself.
Yeah.
It's really hectic. It's doing all the time. I'm really realizing that. I'm learning and all that I see.
Well, one of the things that I know for a fact is that I may be very locked in what I see, because I see a lot of things in my head, but the execution sometimes doesn't work. And you can walk into a room where someone is edited and all the stuff you see in your head, and they'll go over their shoulder and go, oh my God, that's it. That little piece, that little nugget that you just couldn't think of to say, let's use that scene here, could make the whole thing come alive. I was doing I did a retrospective on a festival that I did, and I had this collection of bits and pieces of video that I knew that I wanted to make in order to put on the website. And none of it was the best quality, but it didn't matter to me. What mattered was the story it tell. It was telling of these artists, visual artists, you name it, dance, theater, from across the country who came together for this one festival. And so I bundled it all together because there's no way. First of all, I'm not an editor, but to try and paper it for anyone was just completely out of my realm. And I remember passing it to a young man who, again, took one of my workshops to see how I And we stayed in touch, and I decided to give it to him to edit. And I remember getting the piece back from him, and it's as though he was sitting in my hand, because he hit all of the emotional marks that I wanted to make. So all of a sudden, the fact that the quality was kind of shitty. But it just did. It did what I wanted to do, was touch the heart of everybody who saw it, simply because it spoke to a moment in time for Black artists across the country in Canada that never existed before that. So that's the kind of thing that comes down with collaboration. You can't do it alone, right? You really have to seek out people, but not everybody is going to be able to see your vision. But you don't get the opportunity for someone else to help you, the word I'm looking for, help you release that vision if you don't check out the communities around you, right? That's what festivals is for, that's where home gatherings is for, that's where little collaborations, even if it's just talking to each other, that's what those things are for. Because somebody can drop a little nugget into the pot and you think, damn, that's what I need, right? So yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Hayden Billingy. I am a development consultant who accidentally became a singer. Yeah, so I became a singer, and then obviously after the music videos, I realized that every time we film, I would sing into the camera, and I got bored. After 2 videos, I said, this is it. I wanted a creative film that shows the different sides of me, acting, different talent, dancer maybe. And so I thought...
Did you say dancer?
Yes, I'm a dancer in my head.
No, that's why I want you to repeat it, because you need to say it out loud.
Yes, I'm a dancer in my head. So I thought, I'm a storyteller as well, and I thought, if I want to tell a story about my people, it should be fittingly done, depicting the life of our Hairouna, Colin people, right? And I thought we had a negative sort of idea as to who they were, what they did. So they were very much worrisome, they were cannibals. So I wanted to show that side of us, that fun side of us as a family unit, and also as warriors, but at the same time as
cannibals.
Yeah. And at the same time as peacemakers. So I thought, let's do a film on our people from our perspective, right? And so I decided to dress like a Colin, half naked, I thought it would be controversial because I'm a believer, and I have never gone around without my shirt before. So I thought they would just laugh and make nothing. Yeah, exactly, right? And I was dancing half naked. So I was like, this wouldn't work because I'm not a dancer, but in my head, yes. But and I thought, let's think about it. And I think the authenticity of it was what sold the film. That nobody else had ever thought of this idea before. And they thought of it, but never executed it because of maybe finance, maybe I have the same thoughts I had in my head about the rejection, the talk. The Vincentian are very everybody has to be a director, Yeah, exactly. So I thought, let's do a film, and we did the film, and to our amazement, it blew up, and we were amazed. Our film got so big that we won the Global Music Festival silver medalist in the Global Music Festival, and we were amazed, and we were like, wow, this is a big deal. And then Javed came and asked me to act in this film, and I thought to myself, yeah. So he was behind.
I knew he was talking about
yes,
the way
he was behind me like he didn't come, and I kept saying, I'm not interested in that. And then they came to my house, and then I had to learn the lines right there on the spot and deliver it. Because I didn't understand that there were people who knew how to make proper movies, And when I saw the film he made, I said to myself, oh my God, I cried. Because I said to myself, I cried after filming the scene because it is not my character to put my daughter out. So I cried after that. And after the film I cried, I said, I really misunderstood and underestimated Javed. Because the film was so good that I felt like I didn't do my best. Yeah, I thought that I was one of the least of the disciples in the film.
I mean, it was an unexplored thing.
Right, exactly. But if I believed in you some more, I would have put a lot more effort in it. But now I believe in the next film.
You make us critic part 3.
There you go. And this boy here actually put me in a very bad position in part 3.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in the character.
So the character is betrayed in part 3. I don't like it, but I'm gonna do it.
I'm not very even.
Yeah, I know.
One of the things that I want to say to you is that the reason why the content blew up like that, not the film that you guys did, the original content, has to do with the heart of what you brought to the story. Because just in the telling alone, I can see that it delivered authenticity in terms of your intent. And it's amazing how if you do things from the heart, I know I say about the heart a lot, but it's important that the message gets across, right? Whether or not you look bad in film.
And I was out of shape, for sure.
Whether or not, well, that's the
Sure.
whole thing, because obviously it didn't bother you, so it
Right.
won't bother your audience either,
Right.
right? Because that's not where you're coming from. So don't belie the authenticity that you bring to your projects. You know, if you're being real, if the story feels real to you, if you understand what it is you're trying to do or attempting to do, you don't necessarily have to be able to do it, but if you feel in your heart that you understand this story, then that's what you bring to the subject matter. That's what you're delivering, okay? That's why your project grew up, is because, so what a couple with that, what I'm looking for is that there's no pretension.
Yeah.
No, but it's said, I forget it.
Humility.
Ah,
Humility.
yeah, in terms when you talk about yourself, that I think I could sing.
Yeah.
I could sing.
Yeah, I could dance.
Yeah.
But my next project, I'm gonna be a really bad dancer, like really good. No, I'm doing salsa.
Oh.
Oh, no.
You learned it from Anton?
Huh?
You learned it from Anton?
No, I do
Oh, you
that
do it
salsa
already?
in my head.
In your head?
So,
Okay. My friend over here.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Jamali Jack. As everyone was talking, I'm thinking, okay, what do I say about myself? But I think for me, ever since I knew myself, I love reading. I love just absorbing stories. And I think a lot of what I do comes from that, the idea that I believe that there is a bit of extraordinary in everything that's ordinary, whether it is a glass of water or whatever, because in a lot of my interactions with people, and it might just be an off-the-cuff moment, but you dig deeper and you find a really interesting story there.
Yes.
And I think that comes from when I just left high school, I accidentally got into film production. I used to do graphics and so on before, but I'm aging myself, was in the late 90s. I was probably like 18 or so.
You're it.
And
So.
yeah, and they were starting up the first all-digital video and graphic production companies in this, because there were other production companies, but they were using tape and so on, but this was the first all-digital one. And I felt very fortunate because as someone at that age getting to use, all these cutting-edge equipment and so on, and for about 6 years, I was working for that company, did tons of commercial work for like Kayron and coats and so on. But when I left there, what I remembered most were the two projects that were documentaries. One was on, trying not to get emotional as I think about it. One was on HIV/AIDS, because there was an organization called House of Hope that was starting up, so we did a documentary on them. And one was called Liat's Fashionable Runway. And that was so much work because it was a Sunday afternoon. My boss called and said, there was a lady who we worked along with, and she was a flight attendant for many years for Liat. And every year they have a gala where the flight attendants come and they do something. And this year was supposed to be raising funds to help one of their former flight attendants who had cancer. And I'm like, okay, sure, I come to the studio. I got to the studio 2 o'clock in the afternoon and didn't leave until 7 o'clock Monday morning. Whole Sunday, everything. And this was not in the days of all the photos on, already digitized. This is photos from their uniforms from 1940s all the way up and scanning them one by one. But the point I'm making is that even though I did so much commercial work, those 2 stories had the biggest impact on me.
Yeah.
And we literally, as a company, we did it for nothing. So it wasn't profitable, but it had an impact.
Yeah.
And since then, I always believe in telling stories. And since, when I look back at what I've done personally, because I work for the Tourism Authority, so that's my professional work. But when I look back, and I didn't know this going into it, but only looking back, I noticed that all of the projects I've done were telling stories about people or events or stuff like that. So for me, that's how I come to this in terms of I just love the idea of telling stories, even in something that is very simple, something that we could easily pass over. And I think it's the way I look at people. And sometimes you may say, and you kind of mentioned it in a sense too, sometimes we see certain people as fitting into certain categories, but when we sit with them, talk with them, we hear their story, we realize, there's a lot there. So that's.
This is incredible for me to hear some of these stories. But like you guys know, I'm also sad that we don't have any women other than myself and Aiko.
I said to you, you should.
Yeah. So, repping the team.
This is the team, this is it right here. This is why we do what we do.
So,
So,
let me hear about your story
in filmmaking.
in filmmaking.
Well, I was drawn to it, I guess similarly to what Javed was talking about. I was really drawn to film because of its mass communicative ability, and I was always really I think I really always had a really strong sense of what was like unjust. Maybe I just had a really strong moral compass or something where I just like telling people what I thought they were doing was wrong, or if they were hurting other people or something. I would always be like, from a young age, I was just like, I don't understand why would you do that, And like there was stuff I could see going on in society that I just was like, I don't really get that, And so I guess film for me was a way to sort of like, I was like, okay, well if I could make films about these things, then I could kind of, like maybe I could spread a kind of message, or I could kind of push back in my way, So that's what really kind of attracted me to it. And then I ended up getting a scholarship, and I moved to New York, where I studied for a while, and I was actually in an avant-garde program over there, like an experimental film program there. Well, the avant-garde, came out from sort of all over America and Europe and what's not, but this program was really geared towards giving people, like young creatives, developing like a connection more with what you wanted to say personally, and sort of breaking the film language, like learning the film language and breaking the film language, and sort of moving away from the sort of Hollywood, more kind of mainstream way of doing things, and embracing more independent, creative ways of thinking through filmmaking and thinking through creativity. So it doesn't, so like a lot of us graduated without really knowing how we were gonna fit ourselves into the industry or get any like work. But everybody was kind of, like the film that I made for my final piece at that, it did quite well. It toured around the world and whatever else. And in terms of just I made it about a situation that me and my mother went through here in Vincentian. So we had to move out of our home where I grew up, because of just repeated break-ins and harassment, like over probably about 10 years non-stop harassment, like just ongoing. So it was kind of about me navigating, like, okay, what does it mean to be from this country that I feel like in my experiences doesn't even want me here. Like, I can't be safe here as a woman, you know, like on my own. What does it mean to have a home that you can't stay in, that you're displaced from, and you're also in this incredibly beautiful country that is full of so much terror. You know, it was so much terror that really defined those years for myself and for my mother. So that's what it was about. And actually, I made that film because I was actually going to make the film about something else, about this guy, Captain Guy, this 90-year-old man, incredibly knowledgeable about indigenous farming practices and all of these things, and we made about him. And then when I came to do it, somebody broke in and stole my laptop and stole all my hard drives that had all my work that I'd ever made in my entire life, everything gone, right? So I just did a 180, and this is for my bachelor's thesis film that I've been planning for 6 months. I just did a 180, and I made the film about the pain that I was going through in that moment. And it was shot on Super 8 and also on video as well. And that's what I just did. I just poured all of this pain and all of this just into this thing, and people really resonated and responded to it. And then since there, you know, I've kind of gone on to basically just sort of investing more in my career and doing a lot of commissions and sort of getting a lot of experience that way. And then we ended up doing the festival, you know, and one thing kind of led to another. And what we really want to do is this, like bring us together. There's an energy here in Simmons now. Something's happening here that hasn't been happening before. And the moment, like just with the right kind of input, the right kind of emphasis, the right kind of pressure, we can really just, you know, I mean, look at us sitting around like this together. Like I was just getting goosebumps when everybody was talking, because I'm just like, this makes me so happy, you know.
A round table, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Exactly.
And, you know, her story of having to do that pivot. You guys been hearing that word a lot lately, right? Ever since COVID. But it's real. Being able to pivot when you're in production, as you will know, is one of the things that you need to be most proud of in your production toolkit. Having the wherewithal not to stand there and cry, but being able to just make a turn and keep going, which is what her story is about. And the authentic way that she came to this was all buried in that story. So, pivot is a word I'm going to leave with you guys, because it's essential. When you're in production, something will go wrong. I'm not saying maybe, I'm saying something will go wrong. Or several things will go wrong. Okay? You can plan up the yin yang, and I'm a planner. I came here to write, and because I believe in the tactile nature of books, I got my computer, but I brought books. It almost killed my back. Right? I brought everything to make it possible for me to be comfortable, and brought my own damn coffee. But the point I'm making here is that you can plan up the yin yang, and I'm still looking to see what's going to step in the way for me getting the job done that I came here to do.
That's life.
But that's life. That's life, and you've got to learn how to pivot. Okay? One of the things that I want to bring your attention to, like I said, is copyright, right? Inside of this, and I'm just going to point out to, what's up there? Oh, you keep telling me, oh, that's what we were talking about. And we are also talking about who's telling our stories. And remember I said there's this conversation breaking out all over this little piece that I have here is an illustration coming out of the Indigenous community in Canada and around the world, right? They are feeling the pinch of indigeneity, because I can get my tongue around that, of having their stories be told over and over again by people who have no bloody understanding of the real roots of those stories. So they are definitely part of this conversation too.
Can I jump in and say something? I just wanted to say that, you know, one of the motivations with the festival, just piggyback off that, is exactly that. You know, like here in the Caribbean, this is our societies are in a post-colonial context, right? And a lot of that colonial history, of that legacy, it still has its mark now, today. Like it still has a impact, right? That history, very much still in terms of the economics, in terms of even this segregation that we have in our society, you know, in terms of the way that money moves around, all of these things, the way that power structures work here still, a lot of things are still from that post-colonial context. And during colonialism, you know, European colonists, they knew that narrative, controlling the narrative, was essential in order to subjugate people and keep them in line and maintain. I mean, the Willie Lynch, Making of Slave, you know, his document that he toured around the whole Caribbean and in the States, that was all about how you create the narrative with inside the enslaved person's head that they are inferior. You break the family bonds, you know, you humiliate the father in front of the son, all of these things to tear apart the family structure. This is all narrative because it's all about what we tell ourselves, the story we tell ourselves, about our cultures, about our society. So what we're doing here, reclaiming these stories, is an anti-colonial act. It's a radical act that's incredibly essential for lifting ourselves out of this legacy, for upholding ourselves, you know, and for creating something new, creating new imaginative possibilities. So yeah, I just wanted to jump in.
And that's kind of why I made that idea of misappropriation the theme of this discussion today, because I think it's essential that one, that you understand how important those stories are. Two, that you understand how important it is that you do the telling from your own perspective, as Aiko says, reclaiming the narrative. Because if you don't tell those stories, somebody else is going to try to tell them on your behalf and may not necessarily get them right. It's not saying that you're not going to do some scrub on your own, you know, because I know some of you just rushed right in first. But I want to say to you, research is something that in all of my workshops, I keep repeating over and over and over. Do your homework. You get to be lazy when you sit around and thinking, oh, that's enough. There's enough material out there, enough places for you to go and find the answers. And you have the root to start from. You have the essence here. So use it, do your homework. Okay? That was producer. Right? Where am I? Did I slide up the screen a little fast? Let's go back. Go back.
You want to do on the
Okay.
go through
No. I want to go back because the producer slide is the next one. Right?
Yeah. You want.
That slide is what I was talking about in terms of recognition of the role. Almost every broadcaster who buys your content, every film studio who buys your content and will sign you on as the producer of that content, want you to swear, and you will swear this on all the mountains of paper you put before you to sign, that you have control of those four elements. I'm going to step aside for a bit because I can't really read it here. Okay. They want want to know that you made the decision to bring that content into your shop, for real. Okay? Did you sign on this? Did you get all the rights? And if so, prove it. Next thing they want to know is that when you put together a plan for financing, have you done your homework? Is this plan going to work to produce the vision that you just presented them? Right? They don't want to hear, when you get to this part in your producer's role, they don't care about whether or not it's a good film. They don't care whether or not it has all of those creative elements that you think is so important to your film. What they want to know is whether or not you can finance those elements. Right? How are you going to make it happen? Next thing they want to know is that you have creative control. What does that mean? It means you get to hire and fire everybody. Right? Doesn't mean you have to write this stuff, but it means you have to hire the writer if you need one. Right? And you have all the documentation that says that you have control. For instance, if you hire a writer, is that writer going to show up tomorrow and say, hey, I own that script, or do you just pay them for it? Okay, so that's why we're going to be talking about rights today. Okay, and those are just the basic control rules of a producer. I like to tell my class, the film is a success, the director gets all the credit. If film loses, the director asks you to please take my name off your film, and everybody sues you. And that's as basic as I could make it, because that's real. That is why studios are so, just incensed by not having that piece of paper in line. Copyright has become the coin of the realm. Legal protection. You know, a lot of you hear property rights, copyrights, you know, it's still all copyright. It's just what it applies to, right? Copyright is the note of the creative mark. Industrial designs is the other end of that. Okay? So again, I'm not here to feed you everything. I'm here to point you. Oops. Your production cycle. Right? When you're producing, you gotta know what comes first before the cart or the horse. Before you start making inroads into saying, I'm shooting tomorrow, remember there's a development cycle. And that development cycle for a producer is what happens in your production office. Your production office could be in your bedroom. I don't care where it is, so long as you do the work. Right? That's your business office. That's where you make sure all the rights and contracts and everything is laid out before you start thinking, we're making a film. Or we're making a TV project. Go ahead.
I have a question. So what about if you start already? You just go there and you start.
Everybody starts already. I can't name you one filmmaker who decided he was going into film and did everything things ahead. Okay? I am the after the fact man, because I have done that too. I produced my first music video back in the 80s. I had no sign off from anybody.
That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out, because I basically started a huge leg of my project already, and it's just kind of understanding ultimately the business side of things. Like that's where I'm actually kind of focused, and I'm discovering a newfound passion for film in that business realm, as we would call it. But it's just kind of like jarring, because it's like I'm still like heavily creative in my vibe, and I'm mental.
Creative.
But it's like, how do
I'm not jarring. Why are you? You want to make your project happen,
True.
right? you're in love with it,
Yeah.
it gives you palpitations, and you want somebody to see it. Well, the wanting somebody else to see it and buy it is what you have to deal with. That's the business,
Sure.
right? Because you could be creative and talk all the time about the stuff you're doing and, you know, putting up the odd thing on the websites and stuff like that. But if nobody's buying, you're still working that 9-to-5 job to be able to do this. You know, I call that a hobby.
We got it. Hobby. What hobby? Okay.
We don't want to make this not hobby no more.
Okay, so that's what you guys have to decide. Is this a
But hey, I
hobby?
was here a few years ago.
Right? I made that decision that my and I don't call myself a filmmaker, I call myself a maker. And the reason I call myself a maker is because I make things happen. Okay? It's enough to just roll it around in your head, but if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. So that first nodule at the top, that's where this information has to come together. And then there's a second module to that. After you've gotten all the contracts and everything, then you really start going into development. That's where you start thinking, I need a writer for this, right? That's where you start thinking, and I need a reader for this. That's where you start thinking, where am I going to shoot this? You know, do I have the right components together to shoot it the way I want? I'm working on a film right now, and I'm hoping I can shoot it in Vincent, but if I'm not, I'll be looking at other locations.
What do you need?
I don't know what I need yet. That's why I'm here. I'm here to finish the script. First things first. But that's kind of where I'm in development because I own all the rights. Right? Story of my mother's, part of my mother's life. So I'm going to say this to you. If you're doing a story about family, you still have to get the rights. And the reason I'm doing it about my mother, and I say I have the rights, is because I'm an executive for a estate. I get to award rights. I awarded them to me. Okay? So you get the picture. I'm not negating that you're doing something for your family that's okay just to jump in. It is not. Because Sonia is going to call you up and say, did grandma sign off on this? Right? Because if you're telling grandma a story, she better have signed something that says, yes, son, you could go ahead and do that. Yeah, you have a permission to do that.
How about a personal story?
Okay? I don't care if it's personal. Every story is a story that at some point you're going to try to exploit. Right? And exploitation is what gets you in trouble. Right? Because there's a bunch of people who buy stuff and put it out there. You know, I'm talking about all kinds of, and I'll show you. So let's work through this. That's part of your development there. And before you see those first two modules, production, project research and development, if you can't complete that, don't be telling me you're in pre-production. Because you're not. Right? Pre-production is where you start thinking of hiring a director, you know, your song man, and all of those people before you actually take up the camera for principal photography. Well, they're there. Right? And then, when you're done with that, is then you go into the other phases. And notice in marketing and distribution is at the end. But if you're doing your stuff right, all I will tell you is that once you start project research and development, you already think about marketing and distribution, especially in today's age, where every little bit of footage counts, whether or not you're using it online. Well, listen, I'm not exactly, but I know the importance of this stuff. You know, no matter how you use it online, but getting it out there and start building the audience. That's what you do it. And you you start building the audience, not when you have the product done. You start building the audience the minute you decide that this is the right property that you want to work with, right? So, these are some of the rights that you'll be looking at. Someone here talk about music rights. Music rights is some of the biggest and most problematic to declare. Because someone else mentioned that there's usually about 6 or 7 writers attached, and each one of them have to sign off. And then there's 2 streams of signing off that you have to do. There's not only the writing credit, but there's the synchronization credit, and you need both. Okay? So music rights is incredibly important. And they may not let you use the whole song or whatever it is you do. They may only, I mean, like I did a project where they allow us to use, I think it's 10 seconds. Think about that.
And there's also the way the music is used in the movie, whether it is used in a dance hall setting that you're dancing, or if you're listening to it from a radio, from a TV, there's different types of
and you have
right?
to clear those too.
Yeah.
And if you're using footage from something else, and there's music on that footage, and because you've already cleared the footage, don't think you've cleared the music on the footage. You have to go in and clear the music that appear on that footage you just bought. Huh?
That's a lot of clarity.
Yeah, so the point I'm here making with you guys is that you have the chance to be original. You have a community of music makers, filmmakers, dancers, you know, build your own expertise. Yeah, build your own expertise. I'm not telling you to go out there and be Harry Carey. I'm telling you, build the expertise. He's got massive experience in that area of just that expertise exists, and I'm sure I'm pointing to because I know him from the last couple of years. But I'm sure each of you do, so you need to really ferment that, right? Because the minute you step out and you're thinking, oh God, I like this piece by Paul Simon, just has it right. Just the name alone should be. Yeah, but, and don't think that because you're gonna take a song and you're gonna just remake it, right? You're gonna play it, all you'll be doing is actually creating more rights you have to clear. So I'm saying to you, it's the hardest thing to clear. Be careful what you use. Oops. That last one? Oh, no. Okay. Permission. Where you film. How you film. Location. Right now, you guys are Harry Carey, you're shooting around, shooting in the blind, and nobody really cares. But sooner or later, there's going to be a film industry here. So get used to the fact that if you get a film industry that's established, they're going to start wanting you to charge you for things that you've been using freely. What you're doing now is wild shooting at home. But what you do here, please don't export it because it will cost you. Right? I think Jamaica has a film industry that they're really trying to lock up on because there's been a lot of activity there. So be careful. Signage is another thing that's important. Nobody, Kentucky, what else you have here? Subway sandwich, and all of those kind of things. Was it you that was talking about the signage on
Skype.
Oh, Skype. Those are big international companies. So if you think it's going to look good in your material to be able to have their sign in it, think again. Give you a story of a young woman who actually shot a documentary in Africa. What do they call those? Tall, very, tip of my tongue. Anyhow, she was there on an assignment, and as she was driving into this farm, the Maasai tribe, and driving into one of their villages, she could hear this music blasted out of the Celine Dion. And Celine Dion work and music is much loved by the Maasai. Hard to hear, you know, where we are. And she thought it would make an interesting little documentary. She's a documentary filmmaker, and she's gone on to do some very fabulous work. And she actually worked on a documentary that I did. She was second half of the documentary I did called Being in Canada. A little bit of round also, because my whole thing was, why the hell are we making Canadian films when no Canadians are watching our films? So she got rave reviews for it, because it was funny, you know. And it did well at the, is it Hot Dogs? I had a Hot Dogs. No, Hot Dogs. It did well at Hot Dogs. And it went to Vancouver, it did well there too. These are two major, seem to be, I'm not sure where they number in the world, but they recognize in that skin of documentary festivals. And she did really well there. And then she got a producer, manager on board to try and take it, because it was ad hoc, to take it further, because now she thinks she can sell it. That's the word I want you to be careful of. People will love your work at festivals, but festivals are not a market. The minute you start trying to sell work you have in a festival, everything that I talk about here becomes an issue. Right? Because all of a sudden she had to play Sylvia's music. Guess what? It never happened. And I guess the person who's working with her probably thought it could happen. So she kept insisting and insisting. They ignored the letters that were coming at them asking for it, and finally they said to the cease and desist letter. Now it became a legal thing. Okay, so you guys got to pay attention. You know, you're trying to do great work here. Let's get it out to the world. Let's get it out right. So that's kind of that.
Question. These releases, do you have a format as to what you can use, templates?
I have several, but what I will do is that I will send you guys just a general standalone format. I give stuff away, but I encourage you to make sure it is unique to your project. Because this is language that is used around the world. But you can't take anything you see on the net or anything and then, or somebody give you and decide, oh, this is perfect for me, right? Each project is unique in its own right, and you have to be careful in terms of making sure that the release that somebody signs addresses the needs that you have for your project. Okay, but I will send you guys one that you can use. Okay, and what I will send for you is a life rights release. What does that mean? It means if you're telling the story of my life or the life of somebody who's dead, get a release. Whether or not it's from their estate or aunt and an uncle, somebody who has the executiveship, and I'm not sure how that works here in St. Vincent, but get a release sign that says, I have the right to tell the story. And that's where your research definitely comes in. Okay, come on, it's how are you moving? Come on, baby. Click off beyond it. There we go. Handshake deals don't work. That was long time ago when people did stuff said handshake. A lot of friendship has died behind just a handshake. Okay, you three, I don't have no working agreement between you. I don't even need to ask. I know that.
Can I tell you a story? Quickly?
Yeah.
I wrote a song for a songwriter. Sorry, for a singer rather, Lord. And the song blew up, did really well. And she was doing an interview in the US. And they asked her, who wrote the song? She said, a ghostwriter. And I laughed, you know. And it's funny now that I met the manager and I said to him, I can't recall I was a ghostwriter in the song. He said, but we decided on that. I said, I never decided on that. Why would I do a big song for a big artist and want to be a ghostwriter on this song? That makes no sense. So he says, yes, he spoke to me about it and I agreed. And I said, tomorrow, if we work together again, I'm going to have you sign. We're going to write a thing that's an agreement that says I am the writer and I was recorded as the writer. And this is our problem in the Caribbean. We like to shake hands and say, yeah, I'm a brethren, I'm a friend, let me give him a little lie.
No,
But it's all
no,
about
if you can't have those conversations right out the gate, then you're not friends. I'm serious.
Change the name to Ghostwriter.
Change your legal name to
My friend said I should be a spirit writer.
Yes.
He said, no, it was just about this
And
spirit
in
writer.
fact, in the interest of the friendship, you want to make sure you have that
Yeah.
agreement, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
you know,
Because otherwise, you know, like you start off on the wrong foot. You really are.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, even if it's just a piece of paper that says, you do this, I do this, when the money comes, you get 50, I get 100.
Exactly.
Right? Songwriting is a particularly lucrative business as a songwriter. Do you know why a lot of singers and performers tour? Because that's the real money for them. Because they don't own those songs. The writers are the ones who collect.
Yeah.
So don't be giving away your talent like that. Ghostwriting.
That's right.
Okay? In here, I've given you what I call my tip. I have a cabinet full of tips that I've created. I didn't come up with all of them. When I find them, if they're usable, I use them. I give the party who are using credit and the form so people are very clear they're not mine and where they can go and find this information. So that's tip 28. It's called BARB tip 28. What is BARB? Business Affairs Resource Booster. I don't claim to know your business. But what I'm hoping that the information I leave you with will boost the knowledge you already have. That's the idea. And business affair is a legitimate term within the film industry. Okay, business affairs means that you've either taken care of it yourself or you have someone else to take care of all the business around your film or television project. And the business around that maybe is rights. Yeah. Right, that's why I thought it was important if we're going to be talking about misappropriation of, rights to tell our story and stuff, that we talk in depth about what copyright is going to mean to you and your own project. The reason that's up there is because I want you to understand that there's a whole universe out there waiting for your story. Seriously. these are all different ways in which your story can be told, whether or not.
I just want to interject. This made me really happy to see this because everybody here knows Disney, correct?
Yeah.
That's what Disney does. They make Lion King, they make the musical, they make the doll.
Yeah,
And
that's
you-
called transmedia.
That's the holy grail. Once you have that,
Yeah.
that's generational.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what that is.
Very good.
Transmedia and, what's his name, the director of last night's film. Yeah, I just made some notes here because I realized that he was tapping into some of the conversations that we were going to be having here today. And he said something that I think that you guys, that made me understand that you guys are very much aware of already, which is fantastic. But I need to say it again. Right, he was talking about the fact that he is making a television series,
Sorry.
right? And the television series he was making was based on Splinter. That's his transmedia going on. Because he already has the main story. And now he's splitting off, but he's still telling the essence of the same story, right? But now it's become these different parts. And now he can expand on that world. And character development, individual character development that meet, sometimes merge, and sometimes diverge. Right? So you guys need to be aware that you're not just telling one story, own your rights. What does that mean when I say this? The reason up here for copyright is because if you're selling something to anyone and they take your rights, it means they took all of that.
Yeah.
Right? I will not take on a project into my shop where I have all the responsibility of a producer without negotiating in perpetuity most of those rights. Not every writer or content creator wants to give it up. But as a producer, it's your role to ask for it. And let them tell you what they want to keep and what they're willing to give you. And at that point, you can determine, this is why that first step of development is very carefully maneuvered, right? This is where you decide whether or not this project is worth your while, or whether or not you're just a marketing tool for this writer who's going to take it after you've spent your life under a desk trying to make it happen, and all of a sudden they have a project that they can go out and exploit, and you can't, because you never got the rights. Right? So when the big studios take your project in, you sign off on just about everything. You've got to learn how not to give away everything. He also talked about something else where he was holding on to the Caribbean distribution rights. He understood where his market was, right? They wanted US and Canada, sure. There's a Caribbean audience, let me tell you. Caribbean audience in Canada ain't going out to see a Caribbean film unless it blows up first.
Yeah.
Okay, that's straight up, right? So you need to blow it up here so you can make money there. Right? And that's what he was talking about.
Blow it up here in what sense though?
Eh?
What do you mean? How do you quantify blowing up here?
Blowing up here is getting people to love your work and talk about it. Tell their Canadian friends about it.
How do you measure that specifically?
You measure that by whether or not when it gets to Canada, you make money. That's your final measure.
Case in point, all of our carnival doesn't make our local artists money. It's when they travel and get those movies,
Right.
when they're getting pretty young,
Right.
when they're doing walkthroughs in clubs. So you could do your film and blow it up in Barbados, and the Barbados contingency in France falls in love with it. Barbados contingency in France falls in love with it. French-speaking Canadians are gonna fall in love with it too. And that's how it
Yeah.
transfers. So if you're just gonna move, that's how we have to think about it.
But in terms of like social media,
No,
they're just trying to.
Okay, let me take you back to where I started with this. I started by complimenting this festival on the way that they saw this happen. Most people here still don't know a festival exists. I've been talking to a few people, right? But the thing is that if you put together a call outside on the outskirts and people invited to screen in, HFF, because they're coming back, I bet you they have a full house. And they have a full house is because they remember the experience, right? What you need to do is know where your audience is and build the experiences for them. And those experiences becomes your meal ticket. Out of here, you may be given it away here, but eventually you won't be given it away there. In that experience of actually going into that market to do that, then you can use all your social media skills to help blow it up. Talking to the people who just sat through your wonderful film and want to talk about it. You know, even if you're doing all the posting yourself, right? Do all of those things. But you don't get to there unless you've done it.
So what do you think about then idea of, well, just for lack of a better word, the Rihanna effect specifically?
What?
There's something called like the Rihanna effect, right? Where, you know, someone will blow up overseas, and then, because it's kind of like, I don't know if it's here in St. Vincent, but in Barbados, we have like an issue of accepting our own, you know, until we see like kind of outside recognition, and it kind of like, and how it's being talked about, it kind of goes into the marketing aspect of it. But, so I'm trying to, I think.
I'm gonna stop you there, because
Okay.
I want you to listen, and listen to what I say about HFF. I think there's an example here to follow, right? This festival is in low now, right? But you're here, I'm here, right? And what I'm hoping is that with the small efforts I can contribute, I can take the message of HFF outside of here. Nothing happens overnight. The Rihanna effect did not happen overnight,
Exactly.
okay? Whether or not Rihanna is blowing up now and selling all Fenty and doing all those things, we're all on board because we love her. But that effect did not happen overnight, right? When it eventually happened, it happened because someone saw her at home doing some kind of a local thing. Simply because the local community embraced her. And she was exposed within that arena to a visitor who came to the island, not looking for talent, came here for some sun, right? So the Rihanna effect is not something that just scooted off like that. What it took was the nurturing of community to bring it to the fore. So you have to, so what I'm trying to say to you is that your audience is here, please don't discount it. Nurture that audience.
So in the sense, you gotta define what more you do, what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. And allow them to help you grow. Yes.
I feel like Top Boy is quite a good example of that. It was catered towards the UK audience, and then it got cancelled. But Drake knew about it from like, the UK rap scene, and then it's like, right, let me put it on. Now it's an international.
Absolutely, it becomes international, but you don't get to international overnight. You get to international because you have been involved in your community and your community have embraced you.
Actually, that made me think about what Storm was talking about last night when he was talking about what went into making Sprinter and what went into even having, like you say, involved. It was years and years and years of him working in Jamaica, like making contacts, working with all these things that then eventually, after all of that groundwork, came together to this film could happen.
Nothing all happens overnight. It really doesn't.
Vonley, I know you feel you're thinking about right now. That's your baby, but you edit also.
Yeah.
So when you're editing something, you have to kill your favorite child. So what you're thinking about right now may not be your Rihanna.
Yeah.
No,
That might be the DJ that plays your Rihanna. And then you make your Rihanna.
I like that.
I totally
Yeah.
understand that. Because it's just like for me, because from Philip opinion, I feel like here has that sense of what you're saying, that homegrown building. I've seen it in Javed's film. Is that film resonated all the way into Barbados? People were talking about it there.
Yeah.
So and we've had similar stuff like that in Barbados happen.
Yeah.
But then it's like we're in a very interesting space, right? Because when stuff like that happens, the culture is so it's very difficult to kind of explain this particular sense.
Have vision.
Yeah, we know.
Right.
it's like okay, so the local stuff that will kind of pop up in Barbados will kind of have it's like they'll be like, okay, this is what's talked about, whatever, but because of the subject matter of what it specifically is talking about, what kind of grills the society to kind of rally behind something, they're not going to, unless it's okay, because it's comedy. If it's not comedy or something like silly or whatever, that kind of takes your mind away from what's exactly happening. It's not going to like, sorry, that kind of.
You are looking at this with somewhat of through a negative lens. And the reason I say that is that I don't think you're negative, but I think you see obstacles even before the obstacles, right? Take one step at a time. You're in love with this project, find 5 people who like it too, right? And go from there, build from there, okay? Because not everybody is going to embrace your idea. I have a lot of crazy ideas, okay? And I put them all to paper, and I try to find people who will get in there with me. One of the first things that I wrote for theater was called Journey to London. And Journey to London, I can't remember, tell you how long ago it was based on, I didn't tell you, mask maker too.
Oh yeah.
Right, I make a lot of theatrical masks. But one of the things that had to do with this was computer domination with the spirit. And all happening around Halloween. Like I say, I have a lot of crazy ideas, but I also got $20,000 back in 1980 because of that idea. It was 1988, 87, 88. That's how long I've been done. So, don't think your ideas are that crazy. Don't think that there's somebody to be out there who wants to support it.
I don't know who remembers this movie called The Bitter End.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Ronnie Mars.
Yeah, that movie was like poorly edited. The song engineering did a hell of a job, but the message was so powerful that every Vincentian watched the movie. And if that production team were to do a movie today, I guarantee you, everybody will be looking forward to see that movie because of the message. Yeah, and so that we have to forget about that part that you're worried about. Just put up good content that people can relate to, and they will tap into it. The other thing which you said, remember right there, very important. I have a guy who films me, and I don't let him edit. I'll put it watching. Because every time my editor edits, he has to say, leave out so many parts, leave out so many parts. But for me, if the story is told, no part is left out. You know? And because the story has to take a certain flow. But as a filmmaker who's behind the camera, you always want to cram too much into it because you know every single shot. And so sometimes the story is compromised because you are the one telling the story. Be careful with that.
Yeah,
that's true.
I guess is this interesting, because I feel like I come from so many different spaces, and like this, I feel like this space, the Vincentian space, is something that I feel like is very, it has ultimate potential, just from what I see and just like this would be tiny period of where everything has started and how tapped in you guys are to those same stories that cultivate in the culture and watch and stuff, I think in Barbados is a little bit different because I guess over the years and how the scene has grown and undergrown and what's happened and the cycle and stuff, and not being negative or anything, it's like a lived reality as a filmmaker there. It's just that it has turned to but nothing. But nah, it's just that. It's really understanding the context of how the cinema is.
Do you guys realize that we've been doing this now for over 2 hours?
And nobody's died.
The reason why this made me so happy when I started because this is the holy grail. This is what y'all are shooting for.
Yeah.
So a little while ago, when you mentioned the bitter end, you guys are doing film series. Why don't you guys look into the guys who own the bitter end and get those rights?
You're a movie.
And the bitter end could be really made into a movie. The bitter end could be a play.
Yes.
The bitter end could be a TV series.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not saying you're gonna be bitter end toys, so you're gonna get the bitter end merchandise.
Then food.
You could write the bitter end books, get them in the syllabus, teach that kind of story. The same way you have to buy the Chrysalis book and read that for your farm on farm too. Why aren't even Simonson reading the story of the bitter end?
Right. Correct.
That is money in perpetuity.
And it backfired into the backfires in the syllabus and the story with Napoleon, with the pigs and
Animal Farm.
Animal Farm.
So I'm just saying that, but maybe your movie could be that. Do you
When
want
when I do my movies, the only thing I do,
turn it out there?
I always say that there's an audience. I was an audience. There are people who can relate to your story, who has the same emotional impulses that drive them. And sometimes the obstacles that's in our head and the obstacles at all. It's just our own fears and our own insecurities, to be honest. And I learned this because I did that film.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of insecurities about my body, about how I feel about being half naked, about how I feel about how people see me, and how I'm clumsy. I'm a chaotic person inside. I just look calm now, but I'm chaotic inside. And that's part of why I do music and video, because I can tell my story without having to say it to anybody. So I have the same insecurities, the same feelings inside, but I always say there's an audience, and it may not be today, maybe for tomorrow. Calypso Rose blew up 2 years ago.
Again?
I wouldn't say that. She blew up before.
Again? Calypso's been around since
I know, but she blew up in the US.
Again?
And went to Coachella. Again. So she keep researching and reinventing herself, and that's what we need to do as filmmakers.
So what's interesting, you guys don't touch the band here.
Yeah.
Do y'all know Touch played in Colombia for 60,000 people?
Where was that?
Back when they were
They were Touch.
when they were at the height of their powers,
Yeah.
they did that.
Right.
So we discount and discredit a lot of our things. James Dupree song Nuki. It's alleged, it has been resampled, the drums, we don't understand the power and the value and the rights of what we stuff we have. We see it as just, it happened and that was last week. As long as you own your rights, you can always.
You can always collect.
And to add to that, sometimes we have to think about the audience outside of our country. When somebody who sees your work outside, they see it through a different lens than you and the people who are in your constituency. So when the Global Music Award awarded us, that tells me that somebody's looking outside, looking in to see what is there. And sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and take a chance and take a risk.
Yeah.
And somebody might see it and reward it.
Yes.
That's a good
I like that.
thing
I
for
like
movies.
that.
It's true, when they think it's bush, you ain't the bush.
Yeah.
Somebody saw what you did.
Yeah.
So honey, there's, what can I tell you? Don't be fearful, because I know part of it is you know what you want, but you just working on it. I do that all the time. But you know, we all work in a haze of questioning our legitimacy. How many rooms have you walked into you thought, I don't belong here?
Used to that.
It used to be, I feel that.
As long as I be like.
Well, in the end, I always think that I'm supposed to be here, period. That's it. But it doesn't mean that those self-doubts are gone.
It's still rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just gotta,
At what age?
Hey, you're young like lady.
At what age did you feel like everything is fun? Everything is
I don't. You wanna know how old I am? I'm not good at that. Let's just say,
Oh, you know.
how old are you? You could probably be my grandchild. Yeah, no, you work at it all the time, and the minute you get too satisfied, you're not. Seriously,
True.
I really believe that. The minute you start thinking, I'm done now, it means that you stop learning and you stop trying. Right? The world is constantly, when we think of the way things have changed over the first 10 years of your life, probably still remain the same for that 10 years. These last 10 years have been changing every few months. And I'm not talking about small changes, I'm talking big changes. Who the hell thought we were going to be in a war that threatens to be a World War II? I mean, World War III. Seriously threatens to be a World War II. Who would think that? And that happened almost like overnight. Who would have thought that COVID would have held us hostage for almost 3 years? That happened overnight. So, no, don't ever get so that you lay back on your laurels and satisfied. I don't. And the reason I don't is because I still want to learn. I still want to do stuff. Right? I don't do as much anymore. There's certain things I still, for a lot of years, had a lot of financial clients. And I still have 3, and I can't get rid of them because they become friends. Don't laugh. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
I am begging them every year to go find someone else.
That was a good one. That's real right there. That's too real.
So,
That was real.
so anyhow, so that's kind of all I was probably trying to get off the phone and said. Yeah, she's having a glitch. Ola is my colleague who is supposedly helping with the background of this, because we have veered off.
Yeah.
What hasn't changed is us being here, which is what I wanted. I wanted very much to tap into you guys' work, you know, what you're doing, and to see what is there that I can help with. One of the things that I'm exploring right now is that LIFT has artist in residence program. And they usually like to take in, well, they know it's sponsored, but they offer all the resources, like cameras, support, the whole bit, for you to complete the project in Canada. And I'm looking into that with an idea of perhaps doing my own approaches to the Vincentian community in Canada as a way to assist you guys. Yeah, but there is, believe it or not, there is a community that I didn't know of until my nephew started researching, because he was doing some research on family tree. And there is a picnic. I keep thinking there's a documentary story.
Where all the Vincentian people get together.
Yeah.
And they play netball and.
Yeah, they have been doing this now.
Thousand Island.
No, some of that is a family picnic, and they've been doing this for a lot of years. They have sequestered part, I can't remember the case, but I'll pull it up and send it to you guys. They've sequestered part of a lake community, and I'm not sure if it's Simcoe Lake that they've been going to for decades. Right, and people come from across North America to this week-long celebration of Just Eat. See, you guys are all over your country.
Yeah, my cousin from New York.
She goes to.
She comes over.
Yeah.
Is it not summer up in Scarborough?
Huh?
I thought it was summer up in Scarborough.
No, it isn't. It's on the Lake Simcoe or something.
I have to ask.
Ask her about it, because I haven't met anyone who's participated. And I threatened with my nephew that was going to go last couple of years, and then COVID. Right? But I'm thinking that that's some way you talk about who knows of your work of bringing that community in, because that's a community that spawns not just Canada, but they actually are throughout North America.
Yeah.
And I hope.
Boston.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah, they're live and waiting to embrace. I have something to share with you here. The other thing is we talked a lot about was the audience, who's the audience in this work. This is what this conversation has been about, is making sure you've got your audience, and your audience starts here, right? And then we were talking about how you get this stuff out there. This is your distribution universe. And the reason I put that there is because I want you to think that the product you develop, why is it feature film now? Do you have the sustainability financial resources to make this feature film? Or should we be taking parts of that universe and make it something smaller storyline to get you out there, and then coming back to that feature film at a later date. Okay? So that's, I'm just trying to get your juices going. Right? Because there's a lot of digital places out there that is willing to take on your small project, if they pay you pennies, if they pay you at all. But this is your village. And since I put that together, it's grown.